Hey there, all of my soon-to-be newlyweds, as well as the people helping them plan. My name is Olivia Brooks with Oakley Lane Weddings, and today I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on what you see in front of you here on the screen. This is Aisle Planner. It's our main planning system that we use to stay on track, communicate with each other, keep everything organized. It's the main program that we use to stay connected throughout the whole planning process. Now, I know that every wedding is different, so you might not need all of the tools that you see up here at the top, depending on the venue you picked and how inclusive that is, or the package you selected with us. You might not need everything that Aisle Planner has to offer. That's okay. We still ask you to try and keep up with the checklist so that we can see what's already been done, what still needs to be done, and then what I can do to help, as well as the contacts area here. It's pretty much like a vendor list, and this will be super helpful in the weeks leading up to your wedding as we get everybody on the same page, and on the day of, we can create a quick contact sheet. So everything else at the top, I'll be going over in this video. Most brides use most, if not all, of these tools. But if you don't think you're going to use many, at least watch the video and then pick and choose which ones are most helpful for you. So let's get started. Open this up on your computer if you'd like to follow along and click around with me, or at the end of the video, you can go in and test everything out. The best way to learn Aisle Planner is just to click around and test things out for yourself. So let's get into it. When you log into Aisle Planner, this is the first page that you'll see. It's called your dashboard, and it just gives you an overview of everything happening with your wedding. This is a fake wedding that Aisle Planner automatically sets up, so you're not seeing anybody's personal information. I'll just be using it today to show you how everything works once you get going. So on the dashboard, you can see how many days until your wedding, specific tasks that are assigned to you, important items like time-sensitive to-dos and meetings. If you have payments coming up, they'll show up here as well. You can give us some inspiration here in the design studio so we can get a feel for the style of your wedding. If you're tracking your budget or your guests, the progress of those will show up here. And then as you check off items and make progress in your wedding, your planning progress bar will go up. So that is what the dashboard looks like and the overview of everything. It really is just a quick view once you first log in to see what's going on with your wedding. Let's move into the checklist section. This is the checklist section, and it's probably the area you'll find yourself hanging out in the most. So it'll take a few minutes to go over. Up at the top, we have two different tabs. In the first, you have your current tasks. So everything that you should be working on right now. In this account, it has tasks for the bride, for the groom. It also has items for myself to complete if you want to add a few things for me. You can also add on other people too. So maybe you want your maid of honor to help, or your mother or mother-in-law. You can go up here and add them as planning partners with their email, and they get access to their own Aisle Planner account and can help you cross a few things off on the checklist. So in the second tab, where all of these tasks are pulled from, is over here in our full checklist. This is our master checklist. It's super long. It has a lot of items on it. You've probably already completed a lot of these things, or you're working on them. Maybe your venue includes them, or maybe you're not including them in your wedding at all. So you can slim down this list pretty easily. You can view it in two different ways, either by due date. As you can see, these tasks should be completed around 2 to 3 months before your wedding. It's just kind of a ballpark range. These tasks, 5 to 6 weeks. If you go into view options and category, you'll see that you can also view it by, here's all the things pertaining to the groom and the groomsman's attire. Here's all the items that have to do with your rings or your stationery. Let's scroll down here because, like I said, this list is very long. Ceremony, officiant, photography, cake, catering, videography, childcare, transportation. Everything you have thought of and probably haven't thought of could be on this list. So I'll tell you in just a few minutes how we can narrow this down and make it a little bit easier to navigate. But first, let's come back to the top, go back to due date, and I just want to show you how to work this list and just the basic navigation of the list. So obviously you can check things off. You can also delete them, but I suggest checking them off instead, because if you delete them, you cannot get them back. So if later on you want to add something, or if you accidentally delete it, there's no undo button, so we can't get it back, and we just have to hopefully remember whatever you deleted. So instead, I suggest checking it off when you refresh the page, or you can just toggle this on and off. It will clear that from your list. You can add new items by clicking on this plus button. You can also rearrange them. So if you don't want that there, you can drag and drop, move it down. We will delete this one. You can edit any of these notes just by clicking on them, clicking anywhere on them. You can edit. While we're here in the date, you can change the date. Let's do this one at the top. So if your wedding is coming up and you need to change the date, or you aren't really feeling these dates and you just kind of want to rearrange things, you can completely do that. You can make a completely new category, like 12 months, and it puts it chronologically where it needs to be. Or you can select a specific date. So for example, you could add hair and makeup final deposit is due on whatever date, and it will add it to your calendar for you. So let's put this back how we had it, just for tutorial sake. You can also add notes to any of these. So these little symbols right here, that means there's some kind of note or more information on this task. So let's click on this one. This task is assigned to the fiance, and he is assigned to start the registry. It looks like they just noted what their favorites were, so that whoever is working on this can know, have kind of a direction of where to go with their registry. This task down here is add a profile picture, and it looks like the extra notes are instructions, so it lets you know how you can do that. So take a look if there's a symbol like this. If there's a symbol like this, it means there's a comment. So this is kind of like a Facebook post. We can go back and forth. Anybody that's on the planning, any of your planning partners, we can go back and forth and discuss. Looks like they let me know who else needed hair and makeup for the wedding, and I could note that. I could contact the vendors if I need to. We could talk about the cake, final cake flavors. You can just discuss within the task itself as well. The last thing you can do here is assign tasks to people. So that's what these initials all are. These initials just show that it was given to somebody. So if I want to assign this task to myself, I can do that. I can assign it to my fiance, or if I want to assign it to the planner or any of my other planning partners, I can do that by just clicking on the task and clicking add assignment. So I can add this to my planner's list. We won't see that, so we'll add another thing to my list. And then here, if you're further down and maybe you're kind of going further down on the list and you're like, okay, I actually do know that I want my fiance to pick up the wedding bands, but I don't want that on his list like for the week. I'm just going to give him a pre-assignment, and then that's what you will see right here. So later on, you know, okay, we've crossed off all these things. It's time. You get this assignment, and you can just quickly assign to your planning partners. When you do assign to somebody, it will go in their list here. So as you see, those two things added to our list. And you can do this on a weekly basis, say every Sunday are your planning days. And those are the days that you go in and you see what all things you have crossed off. Maybe you're crossing them off through the week. You only have 1 or 2 tasks left. It's time to add a few more onto the list. And you can do that every week or two, maybe every few days, depending on when your wedding is coming up. I'll start to take over the tasks and start to take over assigning, and just I'll start working on the timeline. I'll be more involved in here when our official time starts together. Up until then, I might add a few tasks for you. I'll pop in every few weeks, check in on your progress, and I might add a few tasks for you. So I might say, hey, I added a note in the notes section. Could you add the names of everybody in your wedding party as well as their walking order, so that I can work on a few documents on my end? So that's how we'll be using this section. I'm trying to think if there is anything else. When you first log in, go over here to the full checklist, go to category, and I suggest getting started right here in the getting started section. When you finish watching this video, check that off. If you've taken a look at the welcome packet or you've completed the questionnaire, you can check all those off. Get familiar with Aisle Planner, get familiar with the list, look at all of your welcome documents, and then one of the main things on here is to go through this list and cross off everything. So like I said before, everything you've already completed, maybe you have your dress, maybe you've hired your photographer, everything that your venue includes and you don't really need to work on, you can cross those items off, or things that you're just not including in your wedding at all. You can cross those off too. So I would suggest doing that when you first hop on, and then from there on out, start assigning yourselves tasks and start working on your wedding. Let's move on to the next section. I know that was a daunting one. That was our biggest section. So let's move on to the next one, the calendar. This is the calendar, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It will show you all of your time-sensitive tasks if you put any on your checklist. You can add meetings like cake tasting, dress alterations. It will also add for you anything in your contacts. Say you put in due dates for, different vendors. It will automatically add those to your calendar for you. So that's kind of nice. As you fill out all of these different categories, it will add them to your calendar for you. You can also add items yourself just by clicking, filling in all the info. You can drag and drop different calendar items. And then you can also view this in different ways. So maybe you want the week to start on a different day, or you don't want to see like your payments, or you don't want to see certain checklist items. You can take those off of your calendar. If you already have a calendar application that you're using, like Google Calendar, Outlook, something like that, then go ahead and copy and paste this link into your browser, and you can connect those. So all of your current tasks will go on this calendar and vice versa. So that's the whole calendar area. Pretty simple and self-explanatory. Let's move on to the timeline. So I'll be mainly taking over here in the timeline, especially when we get a little bit closer to your wedding. Here, as you can see, is just a sample wedding. It's almost complete. There's a few items in red that still need a little bit more info. But yours will look like this when we are finished. Right now, it just will have the main events. So ceremony start time, cocktail hour, first dance. It will have hair and makeup arrive, catering arrives. It will have all of that information. It won't have the vendors, any of the details, or the times. All of that we need to fill in. So the easiest way to do that is start with the ceremony here. Put whatever time your ceremony start time is, and then we'll just build out from there. You can work on this over time if you'd like, if you find out when we can arrive at the venue, or if you know certain things aren't happening, you can cross off, delete certain items, like if you're not having parent dances, or maybe you're not having any reception games. You can cross off all those things, add anything that you are having, and then I will work them all into the timeline. So for now, don't worry too much about your timeline. You can add things as you know them, but let's move on to the design studio. Your design studio is kind of like a Pinterest board, except for a place for you to really refine all those ideas. So let's actually start here in the palettes tab. Over on the side, they have all the colors that they've saved that they're thinking about using in their wedding, or they are using in their wedding. You can use the color picker, or I'll show you how to pick a color from an image in just a minute here. And then you can take all of those colors and create wedding palettes. So for your general wedding colors, for your bridesmaid dresses, maybe you want to create a palette for your cake and the colors that you want on there. You can create as many palettes as you need. Let's go back to style guides. And this section here is where you'll keep all of your inspiration photos. So all of the photos that you love from Pinterest, from screenshots, pick and choose your favorites and add those here. Then what this is super, super helpful for is when it's time to meet with vendors, or let's say your baker has emailed you and he's ready for some cake designs, you can click in here, add your favorites, change the title, change the category, and then you can let your baker know what you love out of each of these photos. Like, I love the shape of this cake, I love the flowers on this cake, and I love the stand of this cake. You can let them know. You can also leave a comment for yourself, for your baker, for me. You can let them know, hey, I love this cake, but I'm reminding myself or I'm reminding the baker that I want a different color ribbon and different flowers, whatever. You can make notes for yourself. This is also how you add colors to your palette. So you can add any image to any folder and then click on any of these colors to save them to your color palette. So that's the Design Studio, the style guide. It's pretty self-explanatory, and it's also very open-ended in the fact that you can really use it for as much or as little as you want. So let's move on to your guest tab. The guests section is totally optional. If you'd like, you can add your guests and keep track of their RSVP status or their meal choices. If you're keeping your seating chart or making your seating chart here on Aisle Planner, I suggest adding your guests. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You can add guests up here at the top, change any of the fields, mark their RSVP status, their meals, dietary restrictions, if they need a wheelchair or high chair, all of that you can change here. You can also create separate guest lists for different events. So for your wedding, for your rehearsal dinner, you could add a brunch or your bridal shower on there. You can click around and view your guests in different ways. So here you can see them grouped into families. We have Richard, Cindy, and their 3 kids. So you can group your guests like such, or remove some categories if you don't really need some of those. Here you can check out the RSVP summary of everybody coming to all the events and their meal choices for them. So this is just a quick summary, and you can change it here as well. And then last but not least, you can send a message. So this was a test message that I was sending. You'll just start your first message, and you can send this out to all of the people on your guests. It's going to make me do one of these because I've tested out a few here. I think we're good. So you can send an actual RSVP form for someone to say, yes, I'm attending. Sorry, I can't make it. You can do that all through Aisle Planner. Or if you've already sent RSVPs, you can send everybody a message. Let's send a message to everyone coming to the ceremony and reception, and let's do guests who have not responded. That way we can say, hey, we have to turn in our guest count soon, and we were wondering if you're able to attend. And you can send a quick message that way. So that's the guest area. Let's move on to the layout and seating. The layout and seating area can be a bit of a beast. It's super easy because you can do just about anything here, but that's also what makes it tricky because there's a lot to learn. I found the best way is to just watch a couple YouTube tutorials, figure out the full features of this space. Today, I'll just be telling you a few things that you can do here and help you get started. So when you first want to create a layout, you'll either already have a prompting, kind of a button here that says, you have no layouts, let's create your first one, or you can go up to the top here and select add new layout. And then you'll first want to create your room or your venue space. So you can make separate layouts for separate areas, one for your reception, for your ceremony, for your cocktail space, however many or however little that you need. And then you can map out what the room actually looks like. Up here in the draw section, you can use shapes, you can freehand it, or if your venue has a room layout already, just sort of a template that they can send you, you could upload that here. And that's super helpful. That way you're not guessing where trees are or where doors are or where the dance floor is and how big that is. They'll already have that laid out for you. Then what you can do from there on out is scale it. So let's say that you already know or have an idea because you've been to the venue a few times, or you can get the information from your venue. If you can figure out how long one of the edges is, let's say this is 30 feet, then you can scale everything you put on your workspace to the correct size. So my 30-inch round this is what a 30-inch round actually looks like in this giant space. This is what a 72-inch round actually looks like in this giant space. So everything you put here in the workspace will be the correct size according to the room. They have a lot of table and chair options over here that you can explore through. Sweetheart tables, long tables, short tables, round tables. They have a lot of chairs, ottomans, sofas, bars even. They have just about everything you could need, and you can add that over here. Once you do add everything, and once you've got your basic room layout, you can start on your seats. Let's zoom in here on the seating. So as you can see, some of these seats are filled and some of them are still empty. You can change the name of the table here, and then to change who's actually in these seats, you can go over to the seating tab here. And this is where having the guest list is super handy. So you can type names of people and you can add them like this. It will show that they are already added, they have a seat, they're at a table if they have a check mark. Or you can just drag and drop people, which is super easy and helpful if you've separated it into groups. So yours and your fiance's family, friends, maybe work friends, you can put all of the work friends together at one table and you know they'll get along. So this area really is super helpful. You can click this up at the top and it will actually export this as a PDF for you that you can give to your caterer, to the wait staff. They'll know who's sitting where and if there's any dietary restrictions or high chairs, wheelchairs, anything that they need. So this area is super helpful. Like I said, there's a lot more to it and you can check out a full tutorial on YouTube if you'd like to know more. But for now, that's all we're going to go over. We're almost done. Let's move into the contacts. The contacts section is basically your vendor list. So as you can see on the side, it's broken up into category. And all the vendors in brown are ones that you've already booked. The vendors in gray are ones that you're still considering. So you can add a few and compare and contrast them and pick the right choice for you. Let's take a look at this beauty vendor card here. Just gives you a quick overview of whether or not they're booked, the payments coming up. You can take a look if there's any comments or documents associated with the vendor. Once you click on this vendor card, it will actually take you to the same screen as if you're adding a new contact. It looks like the same screen. It will be completely blank, but this one is filled in, so we'll take a look here. You can see that there's all the contact information, the specific contact for this vendor. Since it's a beauty studio, an example of that would be, here's the beauty studio, and here is the person actually coming to your wedding day, the makeup artist. So you can add the point of contact, additional information, a payment schedule you can add up top here by clicking on add to contact, payment schedule. You can also add another point of contact or some files if you have to upload anything like an invoice, a contract, anything associated with the vendor you can keep here. As far as the payments go, you can keep it on your budget if you're keeping track of your budget, or you can completely remove it, but this is helpful to create a payment schedule. So as you can see, the total for this beauty vendor is $700. We paid $300 already. Here's the check number we paid with. You can add the invoice number or paid via Zelle, something like that. And then it automatically adds a next payment. You can add a due date and this due date automatically goes onto your calendar. So that's really nice. Or you can go in and edit this and make it a lower amount and it will automatically even everything out for you. And so you can continue to make a payment schedule depending on your vendor. So that is everything in this contact section. Let me head to the contact sheet last thing. Once you do have all your vendors, this is what we'll print out and bring with us on the day of the wedding. That way, if anybody's running late, if anyone's lost or anything like that, we can get a hold of them, know what company they're with, have their email and name on hand. This is the contact sheet. So that is everything involving the contact section. Let's move on to the budget. I know that tracking your budget isn't always the most fun part of planning a wedding, and it can be a little tricky for some people. Thankfully, Aisle Planner makes it super easy here on the program. When you first log in, you won't see all of this clutter. All of these numbers won't be here. Yours will be mainly blank, except for it will have these categories. So you'll have categories and a few items under each. You can add extra items if you want to break them down, or you're buying a few more stationery things. You can add categories or delete them if you're not going to use them. And then based on the budget you gave me, if you gave me one, I'll enter it up here. And then it will break down that budget between these categories for you. So I would suggest the first thing that you do is actually go in here and change all of this. So by clicking on any of these numbers here, I'll show you, by clicking on this one or any of these header numbers here, you can mass change all of the amounts. So what you can do is go in and change your main budget first, and then go in and you can do budgets for every single one of these, kind of what you're estimating you're going to be spending, or you can lock in and change the budget for specific categories. So if you know, hey, I'm not going to spend more than $7,000 on a venue, I don't want to spend more than $1,000 on the rings, so we're going to lock that in so nothing changes. I know I'm not going to use childcare, so I'm going to, lock that in. You can continue to lock everything in and then auto adjust, and it will actually disperse the rest of your money between all of your categories here. So you can do that as many or as little times as you need. I would suggest starting out with that, and then from there on out, you can fill in, okay, I budgeted this much for my wedding planner. This is how much she actually was, and then I've paid that much so far, and then you'll see what is due. So explore and once again, play around with this section. It's not too hard once you get the hang of it, and especially when all of these numbers are not here, once you start to populate it with your own information, it becomes a lot easier to understand. So let's move on to our final section, the notes. The notes section is another one of those areas on Aisle Planner that you can really use however you'd like. So you can make a note to yourself, like a packing list or your favorite cake flavors. You can write notes for me as your planner, like what areas I need to help set up around the venue or the walking order for your wedding party. You can write notes to your vendors. You can send the song list to your DJ or a shot list to your photographer. All of those items and notes and things you need to be keeping track of, you can keep and organize here. So let's click on the family shot list here. And this is what it will look like if you edit or add a new note. You can edit the title, the category, if you want to show the heading or not. And then to edit the body here, you'll just click on it and add images. You can make things bold, add bullet points, and so on. So that really is the basics of a note. When you're ready, you can send it off. You can email it. You can print it for yourself and bring it to the wedding day or on your honeymoon even, to vendor meetings. Or you can just keep it in here and you can just let your notes live here and refer to them throughout your wedding planning. Here up in the corner are the last few tools you might need to use to manage your Aisle Planner account. The Planning Partners button is here, like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, if you'd like to add somebody onto the account. You can also manage what they see and what they can control. So maybe you want to assign them checklist items, but you don't want them to be able to assign checklist items. Or maybe you're adding your maid of honor and you don't really want them to see your budget. You can manage what they see in there. In the project settings, you can change your profile picture, your guest count, your wedding date if that changes. And then finally in the categories, let's click on beauty here. This will show you everything that you've tagged with beauty. So it brings your whole entire Aisle Planner portal together. All of your design studio boards, titled beauty, will be here. All of your checklist items that have to do with beauty will be in here. You can check out your vendors. If you have any notes that are in the beauty category, everything can all be viewed in one place. So that is Aisle Planner. It really is an amazing tool for anyone planning a wedding, and I'm so excited to use it with you. Like I said at the beginning, we ask that you at least try to keep up with the checklist section as well as your contacts. Just update those every week or every few weeks. I'll be checking in here myself every few weeks to be checking on your progress, adding a few things to your task list or my task list, and just updating things as we need. I'll be checking in on you once a month as well. So until then, the easiest way to dive into Aisle Planner is to take a look at the checklist, cross off what you already have, and then assign yourself some tasks for the week. Cross those off, assign yourself more, and continue doing that until our official meetings begin. Aisle Planner is amazing, and it will really help us keep connected as we make progress towards your wedding. So I encourage you to give it a try. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon.